My name is Bailey Chow, and I am the Donut Princess of LA. I own DK's Donuts and Bakery in Santa Monica, California. We've been able to attract, locals and beautify our community, as well as attract tourists to become a very foodie hotspot here. We are located at 16th and Santa Monica, which is a prime location here. In 5 years, I think that DK's will still be a booming institution of where people can come and enjoy a good donut and really have happiness in a box. What I'm looking forward to the most in DK's future is just new and exciting projects. I think it'd be really cool to have a donut festival here, a cool bounce house filled with donut themes, and just really have things that are really exciting for the community and to really bring the community back together and, reunite over their love of donuts.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of ChluyTalk Podcast. I'm your host, Chluy, and today we have the Donut Princess. She's the owner of DK's Donuts. She was also featured in the Donut King documentary. I'm really excited to chat with her and hear her stories. Without further ado, here's Maylee. How are you, Maylee?
I'm doing really good. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking your time out your busy schedule to talk to me.
Yeah, last night I worked till like 3 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, I was training a new worker for the graveyard shift, so I'm still a little sleepy, but I'm happy to be here. I've been seeing what you've been doing for the Cambodian community, so I'm really honored to be here.
I appreciate you, and I wanted to get to know your story because I did watch the Donut King documentary, and it was really interesting learning about your great uncle Ted, and it just like the way it was shot, the whole history about how most Cambodians got here, and I was interested throughout the whole documentary, and I like how they added like each and every family member's clips and like their story and just the feedback and experiences and stuff like that. I thought it was really dope. I like how the colors, the just everything about it was amazing, and I believe it just aired on PBS yesterday in LA, or just like nationwide.
So today's May 24th. It airs tonight at 10 p.m. And I think you can stream it on the app for like the rest of the month. So Definitely check it out. And yeah, thank you so much for your feedback. Like, for example, like the colors, the illustrator of the Donut King poster is Andrew Him, who actually is Cambodian as well, who also grew up in a donut shop.
Oh, wow.
And, the film has like so many cool parts to it. Most of the people in the film are parts of my family. And it even opens up with Daewon Song, who's a really famous skateboarder. He's like an OG skateboarder. There's so many different elements and layers to it. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. It's an awesome film about just like this immigrant hustle and the story of how Cambodians got here and, were able to give them this opportunity to make it in America.
Wow. Yeah, definitely highly recommend you guys go watch it. It's also on Amazon Prime too, so if you guys missed it on TV, you could check it out on Amazon Prime. All right, Maylee. So what was it like growing up in like LA? You're born and raised there?
Yeah, so I was actually born in OC, but raised in LA. And my childhood, I think, is very similar to a lot of other, immigrant kids, first generation when they were born here. So, your parents are usually always working. In fact, my grandma ended up raising me just because my mom and my dad, they put in like 10 to 12 hours a day working their multiple businesses. I grew up in a very traditional family. So my background is Teochew or Chu Chow and Cambodian and Thai. So, at home, we spoke Teochew. We ate, noodles and rice for breakfast. I was raised in such a strict type of way because I was the youngest and I was a girl. In old traditional times, they're really sheltering the girl. You can't go out, you can't do this. I kicked it with my grandma for most of my childhood. And, growing up, I was like one of the only Asians at my school. Like, in elementary, middle school, and high school, was the only Asian girl. So people definitely teased me on the type of foods I ate, on just how I looked. And like, they made fun of me because I would like participate and be smart. And, that bullying, it kind of like really made me into this really shy person. Like I was very like quiet, and, you know, also being Asian American, it's like they never wanted me to stick out. They wanted me to kind of just be like with the crowd and just assimilate. And, you know, since the age of 6, I was helping my parents at the shop, you know, stand on a little milk crate, you know, get up on there and like give change, go to Costco with my dad, like ride in the back of the orange cart. You know, I feel that my dad, he really taught me a lot of things, like to teach me how to do things and to help him. So like, I remember like when I was 8, he was already having me write checks, like helping him pay the bills, and like sealing them in the envelope, mailing them out, and, you know, teaching me about that. We would play this game called Gimme, where it's like giving change. He's like, all right, if I have $5 and I give you 20, how much do I get back? So I think that was purely training for the donut shop. On the weekends, I would help my parents again at the shop, and, you know, just being there and helping them, and always having a bunch of customers come up and be like, oh my gosh, like, you know, you're growing so much, you're growing so much. And then like later on, when I went to college, I still was helping my parents. I would drive back. I went to school at UCSD, so I would come back and help my parents as well. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really have this identity to be proud to be Asian, just because I had so many signs to push me to like want to be white or want to be Hispanic or just want to be anything but Asian. And it was only until I went to college where, like, first of all, UCSD has hella Asians. So it was like, oh my God, it was like a culture shock. I had never even met anybody who was Cambodian or Teochew, you know. And even if I met somebody who was Chinese, they would be like, oh, do you speak Mandarin or Cantonese? And I'm like, no, like neither. And they're like, oh, you're not Chinese then. So it's like, there was always this like kind of identity crisis of like, who am I? Who do I want to be? Even in mainstream media, you know, like growing up, we didn't have cable, but I would watch TV. It's just like, you know, white people. There's no like Asian representation. So, you know, as I got older and started to really step into my career and step into my identity, I was like, I'm like an Asian American role model, you know, like I want to be that for people, because that wasn't around when I was little.
Wow, you certainly are a role model. And so you're like you're the youngest of how many siblings?
So I was the youngest. So it was my brother and I. He's like a few years older, and then me. And then my parents were actually arranged, which I know is not a surprise to people in our culture. For those of you who don't know, arranged marriage is like your parents go, that guy, or they go, that girl, and then you get married. And it was actually my great uncle Ted who was the matchmaker for my dad and my mom.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, my mom, she actually had leased a store from Ted's sister. And Ted's sister was telling the family like, oh, there's this really cute girl. She's really hardworking. And she's like, you know, of a good like family name, which is like, you know, back then it's like all about honor and respect and stuff. And then, you know, my Uncle Ted and my grandma told her son, which is, you know, my dad, was like, all right, you go with Ted, go. And then they asked for her hand in marriage after 10 minutes. And then they were married like a week later. So, I mean, so crazy. But they ended up getting a divorce. And so basically my mom, she remarried. She had my little sister, Michelle, who is now 11. And then my dad, he has a few kids in Southeast Asia. So I have like 2 half siblings in Thailand and 2 half siblings in Cambodia.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm no longer the baby anymore, but I always still feel like the baby.
Yeah. I'm the youngest too. I have 2 older brothers and 3 older sisters.
Wow.
Yeah, so
like a true Cambodian family, like 6+.
Did you feel like you were like spoiled? I felt like my parents, well, having sisters, like I noticed that like my parents were really strict to them. They allowed me to kind of do whatever, like as far as sports and stuff. So it's like really traditional. Like they're not allowed to have friends, pretty much. Yeah. No. They were really strict with me. In contrast, they were not strict with my brother. And in terms of spoiling, like I definitely feel like they did try to spoil me with like food and just like, you know, like giving me everything like that was necessary. But like everything after like I turned 16, like
it was like I worked for that. I worked to get my first car. I paid my first insurance. I paid my gas. There are a lot of things that I kind of just splurged on myself, just because I never wanted to ask my parents for money. But even growing up, like if I need to go, to school and they didn't pack my lunch, they would give me money to like go buy food. So in that regards, I feel like I'm super lucky. And yeah, like I could say I was a little spoiled. Mm-hmm.
You started working at 6, right? 6 years old. Did you enjoy doing it, or you just like something that you just had to do?
It was just something that I had to do, and I remember at times I hated it. Like any other kid. You're like, why me? Like, why do I have to go help at the store? Why do I have to work? And it's just kind of a normal process. I really think that it teaches you discipline. It teaches you, like, there are some invaluable lessons that I learned since I was a young girl at the shop. You might treat it as like, okay, yeah, you're just helping out a morning shift. But there's so many lessons that I learned there, and it really helped to activate me to be a little bit more outspoken. I learned how to sell. I learned how to like build relationships. I learned, hospitality, customer service, and just like letting my creativity kind of run. So yeah, I would say that it's definitely a benefit to, you might hate it at first, but later on you can learn to love it.
Awesome. And at what age did you learn to like enjoy doing it?
I really think it was only until after I came back from college when I was given a little bit more power and authority, where I was like just going in there and making changes or adding products or, creating our social media community. That's kind of when I started to love it, because I could do the things that it made me happy to build. I could be this, I could really exercise this entrepreneur type of mindset and just like create and build. And that's, I think, what really, really fueled me to love the family business when I came back.
Awesome. And I remember watching the documentary. You mentioned like, I don't want to give it too much, but I remember said it wasn't like your dream to work for the donut shop. Did you have a dream? What did you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah. So, okay. I'm sure if you have like, really strict Asian parents, like you can resonate with the story. So I remember I was in 5th grade and my dad was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be a social worker. And he's like, no. We're not doing that. Like, you're not going to be a social worker. I was like, a writer. He's like, no. Like, he's like, social workers and writers, they don't make a lot of money. They don't have good benefits. Just, don't do those things. And I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of was just like kind of a loss, like until middle school, high school. And when I went to college, my mom's like, you should be a news reporter. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah. And at this point I was like, you know what? Why not? So I studied communications at UCSD for 4 years. And on the 4th year, I interned for a news station under a reporter named Candace Nguyen. And I remember being in the back of the truck. I remember like reporting. And I just remember like not enjoying it. I would notice these intricacies about mainstream media that I just wasn't about. Like, for example, it was all about ratings. So the types of stories that we covered were solely based on if you could tune in or not. It's like, what about these other human interest stories? I wanted to report on those types of stories, let alone that. Like, it's like a whole life dedication if you're a reporter. And I just felt like if I was going to dedicate my life to something, it couldn't be this. I guess those were my like quote unquote dreams. Like, I had the dream, my dad crushed it. I followed my mom's dream. Then that kind of got crushed. And then, I came back to the store and kind of just like did the things that I love to do, which again, are just like building relationships. I love food. Like, I'm such a foodie. So I definitely exercise that on my platform and just like discovering my voice. I think that was like a really big thing. And luckily I had DKs to kind of fall back on and, really enhance the business to the next level.
DKs, does it stand for anything?
So I get this question all the time, and people think that it stands for Doughnut King.
That was my guess.
It actually, yeah. So DK's Donuts used to be a chain back in the 80s, and the owner actually sold the franchise to each individual family who wanted to buy it. So, for example, at that time, there was like hella Cambodians coming over because of the Khmer Rouge and the war. So my parents bought DK's Donuts, which stands for David and Kathy.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
David and Kathy. Wow.
I know. Totally didn't fit with the whole theme. But, my parents didn't speak English. They didn't even go, they were not educated. They just saw the DK as like a lucky name. So, they stuck with DKs, and now there's other DKs in there's some in Orange County, there's some elsewhere. And we always get this confusion, like even to this day, like people placing orders and they're like, oh, you're not in Virginia? And I'm like, no, we're in Santa Monica. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. So yeah, that's what DK stands for.
David and Kathy. I learned something new.
Even Kat, they're actually like a little white family.
Oh, wow. What were some of the challenges you faced growing up and just working out at a family-owned business?
The challenges growing up with a family business, well, obviously there's the language barrier, right? So, we're hiring people who might not speak English that well, whether that be Chinese, Cambodian, Hispanic, and so there's this culture of American customer service that they might not understand and they might not know how to express. So I'm constantly trying to teach them just little basic things, right? Just say hello and just don't say what do you want? They're but I get it, because in our languages, it's just kind of straight to the point, right? It's it's not what would you like. It's it's just yeah. It's so direct, right, and so intense that even the tonality is hard to teach them of just to be this so I think that's where I really developed this overcompensating, really nice, friendly demeanor to offset maybe this language barrier that, customers might run into. And we were in Santa Monica. I mean, these are really, really people who are expecting that kind of service. So that's definitely been a hurdle. Convincing my mom to implement certain things. When I started to create this Instagram for us, she was like, no, what are you doing? Stop taking pictures. I don't understand. And even adding the half croissant, half donut, which definitely put us on the map. And an other assortment of things like the letter donuts, all the different creations that I've done. She's just been so against it, but then she'll see it actually works. And she's like, oh, okay. Being kind of the youngest and a female, you're working in a Cambodian kind of team, they're not gonna take you seriously. You're a little I was 23, running shit back then, and so it was just hard to command their respect just because I was just the youngest and a female. If you're listening out there and you're a small business owner, you eat shit every day, There's just something that happens. Somebody doesn't show up for work. They're out of this customer's unhappy. There's just so many moving parts to being a small business owner that, I see on my end, and I'm just here and I just, one at a time. Things are just done one at a time. But yeah, I mean, challenges growing up and just being in the store, it was just I at the core of it, I just wanted my parents to be happy. And, that's why I was so just did what they did, just did what they told me to do. You need me to be there at 6 a.m. I'll be there. Just like last night, you need me to be there at 10 p.m. I'll be there at 10 p.m. till 3 a.m. I'll do that. I'm willing to do it. And it's just because I just have so much respect for what my parents did for me and their whole journey on how they got here too. It's just it's intense, anybody who survived the Khmer Rouge, who is still alive today and is, thriving. It's just, it's just pretty incredible to me, because if you understood what happened in the Khmer Rouge, like people were meant to die. Like there were millions of people who died and were not so lucky to make it out alive.
When did you get the nickname the Doughnut Princess?
So I couldn't become LA's Doughnut Princess without telling you a little bit about my parents' story. So my parents' story really starts in Cambodia. They were actually in the Khmer Rouge, which is a huge genocide that happened in Cambodia. They were granted to come here to America in search of no other than the American dream. So luckily, my great uncle Ted, he actually is known as the Doughnut King. He actually opened up hundreds of donut shops for Cambodian refugees before they came over here in the 70s and 80s. So they were able to kind of establish this craft, which is donut making.
It kind of was like a self-proclaimed title, but knowing that my uncle was the Doughnut King, and, you know, rightfully so, it was more of an ode to him and kind of like a unique type of personality and identity that I wanted to cling to. I didn't want to be the donut queen just yet, just because it's like kind of dates me older, but I was the donut princess, you know, like when you hear those two words together, it's just like, it's like a little bit of like royalty, but a little bit of sweetness, and like any kind of experience that I can provide for being the Doughnut Princess. That's kind of where that title came from. It's just like a fun, cool title that, you know, comes with duties. And, you know, I feel like I really live those types of that title because, you know, being the Doughnut Princess, obviously you're doing things around donuts and, you know, making people happy through donuts. But I think on a community level, like I want to be there for my community in the sense of like we're every day we drop off donuts, day old donuts to the homeless. And, you know, on top of that, we donate all the time, like to our community. Anytime they're like in need of donuts, like we donate to the Veterans Hospital. We've donated to different smaller organizations like Salvation Army. During the pandemic, we actually fed over 5,000 healthcare professionals and were able to boost morale during the pandemic. So, you know, community is really important to me. And, you know, again, being the Doughnut Princess, that's kind of like my title. And I love it because, you know, since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a social worker. I wanted to make the world a little bit better place, but now I'm just doing it a different way through donuts.
Wow. Community. You guys do so much for the community. I'm so happy to hear that. And who doesn't love donuts?
I met some people who don't like donuts. They're like, I don't like donuts. I'm like, cool.
What's your favorite donut of all time? Like, what's your favorite?
I mean, that's so hard. Like, everybody's always like, what's your favorite? But I think I have a top 5.
Okay.
So the half croissant, half donut, which has our classic glaze on top, that is truly my favorite. And I also love air frying them. So I throw them in the air fryer for a little bit. It's really, really good. The buttermilk bars, when they come out hot, they're super delicious. They're like kind of crispy on the outside, but doughy on the inside. The blueberry cake donut, it's classic. Tastes like a blueberry muffin. It's just like, oh my God, so good. The ube donut, which I created in 2013, not too sweet. Got this really good consistency. And it's a Southeast Asian flavor. And for the 5th one, I like the Samoa Girl Scout cookie donut just because I love like toasted coconut. Very similar to like Cambodian desserts. Right. Like that really like coconutty, like flaky type of consistency. And it also has our homemade caramel and chocolate drizzle. So wow, that's my top 5.
That's a great top. That's a great lineup right there. I'm basic, so I like the maple bars. So my favorite. And I remember visiting you guys for the first time in like 2014. My friend Mo took me over there to DK's, and that's when I heard about you. So I think I went over to go visit and support my business at the time, and found out that, you know, it was my own, and I think I got the bacon maple bar, and it was really good.
Hell yeah. I also like to heat that up for like a little 20 seconds. And our bacon that we put on top is like really crispy.
Really crispy and thick. I'm like, wow. I remember that.
Yeah, it's that thick cut, you know? You can't skimp out on that. But yeah, it's that sweet and savory type of combination. That was like the craziest donut we had at first, like in 2012. Like it was like, oh my God, bacon on a donut. And then it kind of exploded into a lot of other things.
Yeah, now you guys do like advanced donuts, right? Like, what are some of like your best sellers right now?
Yeah, so we just came out with a strawberry cheesecake donut, which is like so fire. Our double dipped Swiss chocolate old fashioned donut is also such a big seller. We have this new nutty caramel cinnamon roll, which is like everybody's favorite cinnamon roll with like this like thick, like that homemade caramel with some walnuts and cranberries on top. You know, our classic glaze and sprinkles, those ones go by like so quick. You know, people love those a lot. And then finally, people also love the classics. Like people come in and get, you know, our Boston cream donut or like our glazed twist, you know, like at the end of the day, you're always going to have the experiential eaters and you're going to have the classic eaters. And, you know, all of it's really popular at our store.
Wow. And, do you come up with all these new flavors? Like, what inspires you to like to make new different types of donuts?
Yeah, I come up with it, or my team, or my mom. You know, we just kind of see or visualize, right? Like, what do people want to see? What do people like? And we kind of like go into our little donut lab and we just like figure it out and try it. We just experiment all the time with like different textures and toppings and icings. And, you know, when you have that family recipe, that like classic, like already solid family recipe and you just add things on top of it, like it's going to be good no matter what.
Wow. Talk about like the Cambodian donut boom. I believe like watching the documentary, he said it was something like, I don't know, like I forgot the number, but it was like 1,600 or 3,000 Cambodian donuts across the nation or something like that.
Yeah, so I think total, I'm actually going to be featured in this book, and it's actually around 2,400 total donut shops. But so taking you back into history, so, you know, you got all these refugees coming over to America. They're being sponsored by host families, and, you know, they might have their whole family with them. They might just be them too. And, you know, Uncle Ted, he played such a big role in creating these opportunities for people. And he mostly just focused on Cambodian Americans because he himself had been sponsored over here, and he recognized that, to make it in America, you can't really just work like for someone one job. You know, you got to do like 3 jobs. So why not just like be your own boss, you know? And he fell in love with the concept of the donut. He saw that I was doing a lot of business even at nighttime, and he, you know, grinded and learned how to do that business model and taught each different Cambodian person. So I think there was a huge Cambodian donut shop boom because, number one, again, you have these refugees coming over who don't speak English. You can't take a blue collar job. And even then, if you were a dentist or a doctor in Cambodia, your credentials don't matter in America anymore. The second thing is like, even though it's hard work, it was definitely something that you could achieve, you know, with that limited knowledge and with that limited education. And, you know, Ted made it really easy for people to kind of follow this model because, you know, he came up with a leasing program. He just knew how to like implement people into places they need to be. And I don't know if that's because, you know, he worked as, you know, a general in the army or whatever it may be, but he definitely understood that there was a need for a workforce, and there, you know, donut shops were a great point of entry for Cambodians. So, I mean, I think he's changed a lot of people's lives just from being the pioneer of, you know, opening donut shops around here and across the nation.
You have a podcast as well, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about your podcast and where can we tune in?
So So it's really funny because my friends were actually the one who were like, you need your own podcast. You need your own podcast. I'm like, no, I don't need my own podcast. Like, I remember having dinner conversations with friends. And one night we're at my best friend's birthday and we're literally at the bar taking shots. And like, my friend's like, when are you going to start your podcast? And I was like, you know what? You guys want me to start a podcast? I'll start a podcast. Like, I was like, as long as you guys hold me accountable, I'll do it. And it really started kind of out of the pandemic when I had time. And, I just started off with one episode and it started to build. I have like over 40 episodes now, which I feel like is a big number just because I'm like, who's going to listen to this? Like, is anybody listening? I always talk about that in podcasts. And at first, I was super nervous because, it's like finally like a platform and a channel that I am in full control of, so used to, and the news stations, right? It's like, okay, this is what the company wants. This is what the people want, but what does Maylee want to talk about? And I get to share, tips and tricks. My themes are small business, women empowerment, amplifying Asian American voices, and mindset, which is all the things that I love to talk to people about or that make me who I am. And yeah, I've had some awesome guests, networked with a bunch of like really, really cool people. And they've gotten to share with me. And I think one of the highlights of my podcast that I love asking is the golden nuggets, right? What are 5 golden nuggets that apply to you that you can share that literally can apply to any industry, which is like what I want people to really get is like, you can learn something from anyone. It doesn't matter what industry they're in, how old they are, what the color of their skin is. It's their shared experience and what they're willing to share with others on productivity or mindset or business. And we could all use something like that, and what I meant for it to be was just short little episodes where, I'm imagining you're like driving in your car, you're getting on the subway, you just want something quick to listen to and something where you can, step out of your own perspective for just like, 30 minutes and then step into someone else's perspective and see how they built that or how they went through that. And so it's been really, really rewarding and really awesome to have a podcast and also very liberating, like during the BLM movement, my mom, I think like a lot of other Cambodian moms out there, she's like pretty racist, but I get it because she dealt with a lot of pain and trauma from Black people, right? Like she was being robbed at gunpoint. She's being tied up, like people were stealing and they ended up being, African American. So I kind of get that part where she's like, she really, even like as a kid, I couldn't watch BET. Like my grandma would be like, why are you watching that? Change the channel kind of thing. So it's like this deeply rooted like stereotypes that kind of were they tried to teach that to me at a young age. And it was only until the BLM movement I was like, let's do some research here. Let's really take a look back. And it really brings just so much light of like, wow, they never taught this to us in school. The story was so skewed. Again, just like, when I talk about trying to be a news reporter, things are skewed to benefit one group over the other. And when I also think about the BLM movement, I think, dang, like they fought for a lot of our rights as Asian Americans that we get to benefit from where they had to do the hard work. So it's like, I have a lot of respect for the BLM movement. In fact, when we were when there was protests in LA, I brought donuts to hand out to the volunteers, like it was also a platform, I have an episode about it where I get to express myself and not feel wrong or bad about it and just come from a place of like understanding. And yeah, like I think that's another benefit of the podcast is just like, I get people also who like listen from like all over the world and they're just like, I love this episode about this. And it's not really like my main focus, obviously, because I'm doing like 100 other things, but it's a part that I really enjoy. Yeah, definitely. So if you guys want to check it out, it's called Short and Sweet, a Doughnut Princess podcast. It is on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Apple Podcasts. So take a look and take a listen. And I'm just grateful if anybody's listening to it, honestly.
No, I think you have a great personality. You're well spoken, and definitely I'm going to tune in and check out your podcast. And I totally like going back to what you said. Like a lot of Cambodian parents are racist. Like I experienced that growing up too. Like they didn't want me to like the same thing, watching like rap videos or like change the channel. I'm like, damn. So it was like, I think like when you mentioned like the BLM stuff, like I tried to explain to my mom more recently like what was going on when George Floyd got killed. So I was trying to explain to her. So she's like really understanding now. Like like we're humans. Like it's not right. Even you're not supposed to kill. You're not even supposed to kill a criminal.
Yeah.
So I think she's a lot more understanding now than she was back then. So I'm really happy about that. I told her we bleed the same. So it's like,
those conversations are really hard to have at home because you think about this is like years even before, we could express ourselves to our parents, and also you being the youngest, you're like, you don't know, so like, yeah, like having those conversations at home are the hardest conversations to have, but really necessary. But before you even have those conversations, you need to go and do your own research and understand. But our parents, it wasn't any ill intent, but it was more so of like protection. And when you come from a country of war, and also there's like racism in Cambodia too. It's like you're light skinned, you're dark skinned, you're Chinese, you're not Chinese. Like there's levels to that as well.
Right.
So you're taking all of these old traditional beliefs and values and you're bringing them to America and applying them. And plus, Cambodian people also love to gossip. So like they're going to refer to people and identify them, based on the color of their skin, but they don't know who they actually are. So I commend you. I'm glad you had that chat with your mom and just like, that it's a hard conversation to have, but it is so necessary to do with especially our older generation.
Thank you. Also, I read that you guys, your family built a temple in Cambodia. Take us on that journey. How was that?
Yeah. So my mom has always been this role model for me in terms of giving back to the community. So like even as a young girl, she would go to Cambodia and she would donate like tons of rice and give every kid a backpack and a book and a pencil, and also I think it's that bat like in the temple, like giving to monks, right, and like just really contributing to the ecosystem and economy there. And I remember in like 2016, she was telling me, because she's built a few temples before, but she was building this giant temple and she just didn't have, she couldn't complete it. She really wanted to. She's like, it's my dream to complete this, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. And I go, Mom, whatever you need, let's do it together. Like, here's what you need. Tell me what you need. I got you. So for the next, few years, we started building. The temple has the ancient Bayon heads. That's like, so like kind of, we call it kind of like a little Angkor, but it's called Phnom Sa, and it's in Kampot, which is 5 hours south of Phnom Penh. And, we were able to complete it in 2018. So we had this big ceremony. Like we had like 800 monks come. We had the old people, dressed in white. We gave them all like new clothes and money. And we had, just the prime minister's son come out, Hun Manet, and his whole like squad. There's a huge procession. And it was just a great day just to see my mom's dream come true of like having this temple be built and having it just be this place that she's always dreamed of like creating and making. And I think it's pretty incredible, like just having a role model like that in my life we're pretty religious. So just seeing her dreams come true like that and knowing that I could contribute to her, that was amazing. Also, like pretty much did the whole Cambodian dress up thing, with the sash and like little silk thing. It was a little uncomfortable, but, looked really good. So, it felt like it was a really awesome experience. And if you guys are ever in Kampot, please check it out. It's called Prum Saw.
Wow. That's like the ultimate give back. It's like a whole temple. Wow.
Yeah.
How'd that make you feel to help your mom's dream come true?
Man, I mean, it was like, it was just so rewarding and fulfilling. My mom, again, like has given me everything that she has, even to this day. She'd rather go work instead of me. And I'm like, please just put me in, I'm fine. But she is so sacrificing. She's done so much for me. And I just wanted to do something for her, do something for the Buddha, do something for the Cambodian people, like I still want to go back to Cambodia and do something as well, like, help with their education system. I don't know what that looks like yet, but that's definitely like a dream of mine, because I think about how lucky I am to be born here. And I'm like, dang, like what makes me different from those kids who were born in that village? Let's say that the war didn't happen. I would be like one of those kids running around naked, like without clothes, like in the small village with the toilets in the ground and like, just a different type of lifestyle. But I was given all of this, like the tools, the opportunity, and I'm just forever grateful. And to do that temple for her, like it was just like a once in a lifetime experience. And just to see her, like see the temple and like, it was just an incredible experience.
Wow. Yeah, I think about it all the time. Like I was born in the refugee camp, the Kawadang, so I always thought about like what like my life would have been like if I grew up in Cambodia. Yeah,
it would be very different. Very different. I mean, Cambodia is a country that is still run very differently and very, like you could die by saying some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
no freedom of speech. Yeah.
No, yeah, and like for example, like I wanted to go back and I went back this November. We recorded with Vice. Vice bought the international rights to distribute the Doughnut King. And my cousin was there, and like, it's cool because he speaks English and Cambodian. So he's like my translator pretty much. And he's like, I want you to meet some people. And I was just telling him about what I wanted to do. So he introduced me to one of these like Cambodian princes. And I like sat down. I was like, all right, what do I need to do to improve the education system here? And he's like, look, like most of it will probably need to be privately funded. I'm saying that because if you want to do something with like Cambodia's like money or whatever, you're going to have to say it's sponsored by a certain type of party. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's very political. Like you still have to like play around with these little political moves, and you don't really know, like as much as like I want to go back and help the country I kind of feel not too safe just because you're not still sure like what people believe in that's like old school, even though my intentions might be like, yes, I want to help. You don't really know, like, okay, they want to take credit for it. Or if you don't say the right thing, they might come after you. So there's still a lot of that. And also like my mom, one of the things I think she passed down to me of generational trauma is just like your belongings. Like she's always like, hold your purse really tight, like even when you're riding on the tuk-tuks, like don't like put it on your lap, hold it tight, because, stealing and stuff, that's still a very big part. There's still things like that happen in that country. Also,
you've been getting a lot of like press, like you're just popping up every day on my timeline. How does it feel to be like, I think you were on like KLT, Los Angeles News Channel, and KTLA. Yeah. And more recently, the interview by Eddie Wong that was sponsored by Toyota. What was that like? Like, what was like? How's it all been? How have you been like processing everything? Has it been like? I see you're just always on your grind too on your stories. So you're always doing something. So like, how do you like juggle all the things?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think I mean, ever since I stepped into DK's, like we've been on the news like at least once or twice a year. We've been featured on countless things like USA Today, Infatuation, like local news channels, Food Network, so I've kind of stepped into being like the face of my company, which I love. And I love being able to show people what my parents brought here and all the delicious donuts that we have. But more so last year, with the pandemic happening, it really gave me a chance to focus again on my own voice. Yes, I might be the donut princess, but I am way more than just somebody who sells donuts. This is like way more than that. Now it's like my whole story is to be that person, again, that role model for Asian Americans, to show them like, yo, you could do this too. Like, I want to be that face that, they're like, oh yeah, like Meili could do it. I could do it because I'm Asian too, to be that inspiration for people. But with the whole being on KTLA thing, more recently, they featured us because the Donut King is launching on PBS. And it was just like so surreal to kind of see just like my family members on TV, and I'm like, my face on TV again. And, it's an important segment which says Asian American Visionaries, which is such an honor, and I just want to speak on behalf of, our Cambodian Americans, Teochew Americans, Asian Americans, like even amidst all the anti-Asian hate crime, it's like we are still up to really good things. Can we focus a minute on the good things? Like, can we celebrate these moments? Can we be there for our community in that way? And like, that stuff is like, it's really awesome. And the recognition is really great. And then with Toyota, during the pandemic too, it wasn't busy at the shop. Like we lost almost all of our corporate accounts. So I myself had to change my lifestyle to survive. I was like, okay, like this is what it's like when you like, don't make any money. Okay, cool. Like I got to like figure this out. So I started to look into, doing these like brand deals with, other messages that I really resonate with. I think like being that face for people, you got to believe in the product that you're selling, or you got to believe in the thing that you're promoting. And, Toyota had reached out and they, I requested the RAV4 because like that's a dope car, and I test drove it and it was great. And they wanted to highlight the things that I've been doing for the community. So, and then they told me Eddie Huang was going to interview me. Little do people know, Eddie Huang was supposed to interview me 3 years ago on his segment on Vice, but he ended up canceling last minute, even though I had flown back from India just for this interview. Oh, wow. So anyways, I brought that up to him later. We're good now. But, in many ways, Eddie Huang is also promoting, and amplifying Asian American voices. And he just came out with his movie called Boogie. And, he consistently uses his platform to address issues. And, having him interview me was an absolute honor as well. And we talked about some really deep issues and some really powerful stories. And I got to share that with him. And the whole experience was, it's the interview. We did a cooking scene with my mom. We made, the green mango with the fried fish.
Oh, the mango salad.
And we made, I love that. My favorite. Yeah. The ong choy stir fry. And then we made salamachu. And, those are just like that same kind of comfort foods that, we share. And then they followed me when I donated 500 meals to the Alhambra Hospital. So, the whole experience was really remarkable and really incredible. And having all this press on me is just like, I'm ready for it. Like this is our moment. I'm just not doing it for me. I'm like, this is like what I want Asian Americans to be represented, like for history. So like, I mean, it's just a really big honor, and I'm so grateful. Like when people comment and like support, like you always comment and support, like I feel that, like I send out these hearts, like I really feel that. And I really appreciate just people like following my journey and supporting it, because again, to be successful, it's also about the environment that you surround yourself with.
I totally agree. And you make us all proud, like you're a great role model. I really appreciate you, everything that you and your family do for the community. Like, I believe in, like, karma, you know, like, tuk bun bin bun, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's very important to give back any way you can. And hopefully it inspires other people to do the same if they can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, it's like, I'm pretty Buddhist too, right? And like, we all believe in karma. We believe like, this is not your only life. Like, you're going to move on to this next life. But I think that, you know, my mom would always talk about this. I'm like, oh, I feel like I did a lot of good things in my last life. You know, let's keep this going. And, you know, karma, you're right. It's like this cycle. It's like, just keep focusing on the good. Keep doing good. Do good for yourself. Do good for others. And good things will come your way. You know, you have to like want it and have intention to do it, though. You have a heart to do it. And it doesn't have to be big. You don't have to build a temple, but, you know, you can get creative. You know, you don't have to break the bank, but maybe you can, you know, volunteer your time, volunteer your ideas, show your support on social media. I mean, there's so many different ways now that you can, you know, play a part in your community and give back. It's really important in the whole cycle of life.
I agree. And what advice would you give to like future entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, for future entrepreneurs, I would say you just gotta figure out who you are. You know, figure out who you are. And whoever you are, you gotta run with that. And, you know, yes, it's all about the grind, but, you know, there's always ways to work smarter. There's always ways to, you know, get creative. I mean, we have Google, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't grow up with Google. Like, we had dial-up. We didn't even have computers and shit at that time. Yeah. But, you know, do your research and, you know, go towards something your heart is like really about, you know, go towards something that you really believe in, because that's going to drive your success. And, you know, don't be afraid to reach out to a mentor or somebody out there who's already done it before, because why do you want to learn the lessons the hard way? You know, they already learned the lessons the hard way. Just take their advice. So, you know, reach out to a mentor or a coach or somebody if you're really lost. But, you know, you just got to trust and work and improve on your habits every day. I have been listening to a lot of audiobooks, and they've been really great. So yeah, just constantly work on yourself, and don't forget to take breaks too. Like, your mental health is really, really important. I look back at how my parents worked like 10, 12, 14 hours. And sometimes I put in that work, you know, because it's needed, but like, you know, you got to take some time to also recover, or else you're going to burn out.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and just having a great conversation with me. And are there any last words or shout outs you want to give?
I just want to shout out you for being this like super great part of our community, like showing people like Cambodians can be really funny and sharing our culture. And thank you so much. Definitely want to give a shout out if you guys want to follow my journey on social media. You know, it's at Meili Tao, at DK's Donuts, at Doughnut Princess LA. I just started a luxury and economy car rental business called Doughnut Exotics. Oh, wow. So if you guys could check that out, that would be great. And yeah, I mean, if you guys need anything, you guys know where to reach me. And I am so thankful for the support.
You got my full support, and all your info's on the screen. And go make sure you guys go check out the Doughnut King documentary too when you get the chance. Really good. And I'll see you at the top, Meili.
Hey guys, what's up? We out here. This is Meili Tao, your Doughnut Princess, and you're listening to Hella Chloy's podcast.